So, the plan for today is to essentially, we're going to work a little bit with some like custom post types, some custom meta, and kind of get that all able to output through GraphQL. There's a couple of specific things that we'll need to do in the WordPress theme to get that custom metadata, get those custom post types and all of the information and stuff into the GraphQL endpoint properly. So if we go currently to our headless next.local WP admin, log in there. Let's go into the GraphQL IDE and just take a look at a couple of things. Once the schema loads up, so we've got a ton of options on the left-hand side here. You can see that we have our defined post types already: the page, pages, and the posts, which we are currently grabbing already. Let me remind myself, so if we left off on the home page, we started outputting the actual kind of looping over all of the posts on the site, looping over them and then outputting them with some fancy dynamic routing and stuff here. So we've got our posts and pages handled pretty well. One of the things that I have always built when building a custom WordPress theme or anything like that, when working for clients and stuff, are custom post types. We always need to kind of tailor like the WordPress experience to each individual client. I'm just going to update WPGraphQL while I'm looking at it. So we always kind of need to tailor the backend here to the client. And with WPGraphQL, add custom post type. Within the docs, there's a very specific way within the WordPress theme that we need to essentially A, create the custom post type, and then B, send that custom post type to WPGraphQL to essentially index and add to the GraphQL endpoint. So let's just get started doing that. The first thing that we need to do is create a custom post type. If we go into our theme on the right hand side here, there's the functions.php file, which it doesn't look like they are, doesn't look like they're, man, this is a large functions.php file. Usually what I like to do is try to split these things out into their own partials and then like include them in the PHP. But I'm debating right now too whether or not we want to just stick with the default WordPress theme or if I want to import our our House of Giants like starter WordPress theme that is super blank but has some useful like PHP tools or utility files that create custom post types and stuff like that for us a little bit easier. It's a little bit more automized. It's too early. I can't think if automized is a word. Oh my goodness. automated. Oh boy, there we go. Okay. My brain. Okay. Let's just stick with this. This isn't that big a deal. I'm going to be the worst WordPress developer in the world, and WP we are going to use generatewp.com to generate a new custom post type. Just because I don't want to write out all the labels and stuff. Post and page. No, we not the WP query generator. We want custom post type. Ooh. Post type. Everyone's going to judge me for doing this, but that is okay. The function name is going to be add. What type of post should we add here? Let's add a. Since we're on Twitch, let's do add. We'll have like a. Essentially our own list of, do we want to do streams or, let's just call it videos. Add videos, custom post type. There's no child theme. The text domain doesn't exist because we're not going to do translations right now. The post type key, we'll just name it videos. There's no taxonomies right now. Site videos. Post type key is just videos. Name singular. Name plural is videos. We don't need them to be hierarchical, so we're just going to make them just like posts. Menu name. Videos. Video archives, video attributes, parent video, all videos. Add new video. Add new. Featured image, set featured image. We're going to call this cover image or poster. Set poster image, remove poster image, use as poster image. Uploaded items list, videos list navigation, filter videos list. Uploaded to this video. So we want to support title, content, excerpt, featured image, and everything else should be fine. Archives, export, blah, blah, blah. Visibility should be public. Showing the UI, showing the admin bar. Admin sidebar. Let's grab a dash icon for it real quick. We'll just do this nice format video icon. Oops. Dash icons format video, show navigation menus, query, publicly queryable. Don't need that. Default is fine. Permalinks, default permalinks is also fine. Capabilities should be fine. REST API, we want it to show in the REST API. Don't need to change either of those things, and now we can update the code. This is why I didn't want to type all of this out by myself, because all of these labels and stuff are annoying to type out by hand. So we cheated a little bit. Sorry. In any case, let's see here. Let's make sure, so the add action is using the proper function name, just in following with the kind of code style that exists within the default WordPress theme. There's no space between this and the add action, so we'll delete that, save you. And fingers crossed, if we refresh our admin, we should get videos on the left-hand side here, which is excellent. So we have a new custom post type that we've registered. It exists in the WordPress admin. If we go to the GraphQL IDE, once it generates the schema again, the assumption is that it would add this custom post type to WPGraphQL by default, but it does not. So if you look on the left-hand side here, there's no video endpoint that we can hit to actually like query these videos and stuff. So if we go back to the WPGraphQL site, let's read through this. So in order to use custom post types with WPGraphQL, you must configure the post type to show in GraphQL using the following fields. Show in GraphQL is a Boolean. GraphQL single name is just a string with no punctuation or spaces. Needs to start with a letter, important to be different than the plural name in the GraphQL plural name. So when we register the custom post type, WPGraphQL essentially hooks into this function and then adds a couple of parameters that we need to add. So let's go ahead and add those. And these are in the arguments for the custom post type. So similarly to show in REST, we have show in GraphQL. And we'll set this to true. We've got GraphQL single name, video. And do I need to capitalize that? I don't think that I need to capitalize that. No. So we'll just do video and then single name, plural name is videos. So we've got single name, plural name, and that should be it. Let's make sure we add a comma to both of these. Save that and refresh the GraphQL IDE and see if that's all that needs to be done. Video by. Awesome. So now we can pretty easily query the video's custom post type. So let's go ahead and add a new one here. We'll just name this the same name as what we're doing right now. Working with custom meta. And then let's add a YouTube embed just for the sake of it. I will grab a YouTube video from my YouTube channel. If you hear me twice for a second, there we go. Nope, okay, good. So if we share this, grab the URL, bring it back over to our window and paste it in there, we should get a nice little YouTube embed with a lovely thumbnail image of me. That looks very good, Dom. Cool, okay, so we've got, it's gonna bother me if we don't use the same title as the actual video. There we go. Okay, so we've got that. Let's make sure that the URL change part 1, the setup, that's all good. Let's remove all these extra dashes because I use semicolons that are not valid in a URL string. So we do that. Let's have the video up at the top, and then let's add just a blurb of content. We'll just add some lorem ipsum. 1, 2, 3 paragraphs should be plenty. We also gave our custom post type the ability to have a poster image. So you can see that we changed some of the labels in the back end here. So the featured image stuff, set featured image, remove featured image, we just changed the labels to poster. It's all just the same default WordPress featured image functionality. Nothing too crazy there. So we'll just set the featured image so it exists and publish this. And then from here, if we just grab the slug, we should be able to go back into the GraphQL IDE, go to video, search for a video. We'll just query a single video by the URI and have it return the title so that we know we have a good query, which we do. So now we can use that in our actual Next.js application to query those videos. So much like we did the posts and pages in our API, we will create a new folder called videos. And we will again do a dynamic route here. Pretty much copy and paste what we have from the post query, where we just query a single post, do video, rename a couple of things here. So instead of query single post, query single video. The ID is an ID, and the ID type is the slug. Does it matter if we use URI or slug here? Just to keep it consistent, I suppose we'll maintain the slug ID type. We'll grab the title, we'll grab the content. Let's also grab the featured image, which is a node. And then if we just grab the source set. Let's see what that gives us. Sweet, so that just gives us a big ol' string with all the responsive image URLs that WordPress automatically generates for us. So we've got the source set. Do we need anything else from here? I don't think that we'll need the caption. I'm not even adding one. We could if we wanted to. I don't think it matters too much. So let's alter our query to look like this. So we've got the title, the content. We'll grab the featured image, node, source set. And that should be our single video. In the actual fetch function, we're querying the single video. We are passing a slug ID to that query so that it knows which video to actually grab, and we should be good there. Let's make sure I actually change this to video and not post, since we're querying videos, not posts. And that should be good for our API endpoint. So if we actually go to the next application, go to /API/videos, and actually page post, we want to keep this all singular. Let's rename that to video. Hello, video. API/video/ and let's grab that and see what it comes back with. Properly getting the video title. We have the content here, which is HTML markup. We have the featured image node source set that comes back with the source set. So we've got our API endpoint hooked up to our custom post type, nice and simple. If we go back into the actual pages, we can create now a new folder in here and call this video. Very similar to the single post page, we will just create a new dynamic route that is slug. I'll just copy and paste that file so that we have it in here. And let's look through here, just make sure there's nothing that we need to change. So the SWR function, we need to change this to API/video/slug. That'll go out and fetch the data. We could dangerously set the inner HTML content, which we can probably write a escaping function for this data that's coming down from the server, just to add like an extra layer of security. We won't worry about that in this demo for right now. Once we start building out some like utility functions and stuff, then we'll kind of think through that. Okay. I don't think, yeah, the static paths. Let's generate the static paths here. Instead of querying all posts, we're going to query all videos. This is also videos. And let's just posts. Okay, there's too many of these. Let me just match the match case here. All videos. Content type, JSON stringify query all videos. And it should just be data, videos, edges, await all videos, JSON. Change this to video. So this get static paths function is what we use to essentially generate the, we go out, we query the GraphQL API and say, hey, return us all of the URLs for videos so that Next can kind of like pre-render those pages, or at least do some magic behind the scenes to get the data from those pages, do what we need to do to actually present those pages to the user. This helps Next.js to do that a little bit more efficiently. Additionally, it gives us the ability to, well, actually, the get static props function is kind of separate from this get static paths. But in any case, we use get static props to pass the slug down to the actual like content function, so that we can make the query with SWR. And we did all of that in our last stream on Friday. But with that, I think that we should be able to just straight up go to /video/headless WordPress next one. Data.post. Oh, that's because it's not post. It's going to be video. Refresh. We're getting our post. So this is all of our custom post type data. We've got the title, we've got the video embed, we've got the paragraphs, all dropped into the route that we have set up through Next. So because we laid most of the groundwork with posts and pages, adding a new custom post type is pretty straightforward. It's just a query. We use dynamic routing through our API middleware. And then we create a dynamic route for our actual page to show the content based on the slug. So as expected, if we were to go back here and add another, not a block, but a new video, let's add the intro video. If we go here, go to the intro, pause that, just grab the title and the embed URL. There's that. There's that. And then let's add the other, or sorry, some more lorem. There's that. And then we can throw in another featured image. We'll just keep using the same featured image. Not a big deal. Publish that one, and actually let me change this URL so there's not 1,000 dashes. Publish that. Go back over to our next application. Let me copy the slug here. And we should get the intro, which we do. Okay, cool. So nice and easy. Now, let's use that featured image. There's a couple things that we could do. We could do something similar to what we did on the homepage already with the posts, and write a query for recent videos or something like that, and do exactly the same thing that we are already doing here. But let's just do that for the sake, even though it's a little bit redundant, let's just do it for the sake of practice, right? So what we need to do is just create another SWR function call to our API endpoint. So we'll do const videos, call this recent videos. I'm going to change this from recent to recent posts, just to be a little bit more deliberate with the naming. Let's go back to the home page just to make sure that I don't break anything here, which of course I will because I haven't finished writing out my other variable. Cool, there we go. We're still getting all of our posts. We can still click on them and they go to the proper route. So now if we spell recent properly, recent videos equals use SWR. We hit the API endpoint that we just created, API/video/recent, which is a part of the endpoint that we have not built yet. This recent portion we'll need to copy from the posts, and we'll just do a simple fetch from our fetcher. Oh my goodness, struggling this morning. Recent videos from the fetcher. So let's go ahead and do that before we get too far down the road here. If we go to our post, we'll see our recent.js. It's a simple GraphQL query that has some filters associated with it. So we're just grabbing the first 5 posts and ordering them from most recent to oldest. And then we're grabbing the slug title and the the excerpt. What we will do, however, on this one is include the featured image. So let's do recent.js. Grab that instead of recent posts. Recent videos. So posts here, videos. And instead of querying the posts here, we do videos. grab the first 5, order them. We are not passing any variables or anything because we just want to get the latest. This is essentially just a feed. Cool, nothing to that. We've made the SWR function call to go out and hit that endpoint and get us the data based off of that. And then what we can do in the actual markup of the page, let's add this above our recent posts just to make it easy on us. Now, essentially what we need to do is map over the returned array of posts that we get from our recent posts query or our recent videos query. So if we do recent videos.data, and we'll do, again, conditional chaining here to say, wait until there's data, and if there is data, then proceed to the next part of the chain. Otherwise, ignore it. This kind of lets us like error gracefully, right? Like nothing will render if no videos come back from the query. This whole section just won't render, which is fine. We probably wouldn't want to show an empty, recent videos section. So conditional chaining helps us with that. So the way that this will probably come back, let's see if we can assume correctly. Essentially just based off of the way the posts map is set up. It should just be videos.edges.map. And we will make this a node as well. And then in here, we will return some stuff. So we'll do a div. Make sure to add our key here so that React doesn't yell at us. And this node, we're just destructuring from the returned data object. So we're just destructuring nodes so that we could use a little bit simpler here. So we've got that. Let's add this as an H2 just to make it a little bit different. Node.title. We can do the excerpt if we wanted, but I think that all that we... I'm debating whether or not we want to like drive people to the single page, the single video page, or if we wanted to try to grab the YouTube embed URL. And actually, that might be a good segue into something else. So let's just save this for now and see what we get on the home page here, which is a broken page. Argument entity is required. Interesting. Okay, let's go to the API real quick and just see API/video/recent internal server error. Okay, so there must be an issue with our GraphQL query. So let's take a look at that. Recent video. So if we go all the way down here, let's create a new query for videos. In fact, I'm just going to copy and paste this whole little bit here. Oh, we don't have an excerpt on our recent videos. So that's going to cause our GraphQL endpoint to freak out a little bit and say like, hey, there is nothing here for me to return to you, so don't do that. Cool, so we're now actually properly getting our 2 videos that we've added here. If we go back to the home page, we should see those titles as H2s now, which indeed we do. It's interesting that is taking long. I wonder if the post query is cached. You see how it like jumps there a little bit when you load? Okay, now they both jump. I wonder if the order wonder if the order that I have these SWR calls in matters in how they get fetched. Yeah, it does. Interesting. I wonder if chaining, or not even chaining, but just calling SWR this many times is like super inefficient. Let's see if we can research that a little bit before we move on, because that would be good to know. Multiple use SWR queries. Just look at their README here. Multiple arguments. Some scenarios is useful to pass multiple arguments to the fetcher function. No. Let's see what other. Global configuration, data fetching, conditional, dependent, manually, post request, SSR with next, suspense mode. Oh no, see, yeah, they have a, they have an example here with multiple use SWR calls that are essentially what we're doing here. However, I do like how they're destructuring their data here. So I'm going to change to that. And they do have these set up in two different functions, which actually could make sense. So if we wanted to, well, this isn't very helpful because, like, what is this dashboard outputting? Like, does each use a SWR function here have an associated, like, return? Like, what is this dashboard returning here, you know? SWR config. So let's look at this too. The context SWR config can provide global configuration options for all SWR hooks. In this example, all SWRs will use the same fetcher provided to load JSON data and refresh every 3 seconds by default. Interesting. I'm just curious what. Yeah. Okay, so within this function, these are essentially self-contained. I do like that. That kind of componentizes things a little bit more for us here. So let's try that. Let's do const recent videos. Just create an arrow function here. We're going to have it return something. So for our recent videos, we will grab the map that we did here. And obviously that's not going to be anything quite yet. We have our fetcher defined up at the top. Let's move our recent videos SWR call up here. Should just be, I wonder if it matters whether or not we use function. Doesn't seem to. What is this yelling at me about? Return. Comma expected. Oh, because it needs to have a wrapper around it. When we return a React component, we have to make sure that it is it is wrapped by something, whether it's a div or just a fragment or whatever. Something like this can't be the first item that is returned. So for our recent videos, we'll kind of split these things out into their own individual pieces. I like their destructuring of data videos, which we can then use down here. I believe, yeah, so we're just destructuring the data and returning the videos object from there. So we get that, do the edges, node, blah, 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 all of that type of stuff. We could very likely even break this out into its own component and add this into our next application as a component itself that we could reuse in other places. For right now, we'll just leave it on the home page and make sure that what we're doing here actually works. I don't think that we need to leverage the SWR config here, although yeah, no, we're not doing multiple SWR calls in here, so that is just fine. So we've got all that. Let's also make sure that we do some validation here, right? Or just make sure that if we do not return any videos, when we return loading, otherwise return the whole thing out, added it down there. Let's save that and see what we break. Cannot read property map of undefined. Okay. It's console.log videos here. See what we're getting. Renders high. Wait a minute. What did I just click on? Weird. Okay. If I go to inspect, let's look at the console real quick. So we are returning an object, videos, edges, node. Do they have return you have projects.length project? So if no videos return, what was the error that we were getting there? Videos.edges map. Interesting. Cannot read property map of undefined. Do we need to chain here too? Strange. Because we got videos. Edges is an array that we should be able to map over. Data videos. Oh, is this different? So when passing a function, SWR will use the return value as key. If the function throws or returns falsy, SWR will know that some dependencies are not ready. In this case, user ID throws when user isn't loaded. Interesting. Okay, didn't know that either. So if we I don't think this is the purpose of that, actually. I cannot read property map of undefined. Doing it in a function like that, I think is more for if you are waiting for another like API call to grab, like in their example, a user ID and use it within your your query. Let's refresh this, get rid of some of those errors. So why is the static videos.edges? Oh, is this? Oh boy. Do I need to go even one further? There we go. I think that's why. So I just didn't destructure the data correctly because what we're getting back from our data is a videos object that we want to destructure as well, which we'll then use to grab the edges and then map over those edges. Presumably this should work. There we go. Now we can remove our test. Sweet. And we get that properly. What? Can I read property videos of undefined? What are you talking about? Everything was just fine. Can you refresh? So we can't destructure? We can't destructure that because the data doesn't always contain that shape. I wonder if in their example they're just using this as a way to delineate between two different queries. I'll bet you that's what it is. So from our perspective, instead of actually destructuring the data, we just want to name this something like recent videos, and then we can do recent videos .videos.edges.map. So we're just reassigning the name of the returned data to recent videos. So when we refresh, everything should be okay. It'll load, it'll grab those things. Great, that is just fine. Okay, cool, a little bit roundabout of a way to get there, but we got there. Okay, sweet, so we've got the recent videos. Let's do the same thing for const recent posts. Just another arrow function, const data recent posts, use SWR / API / post recent fetcher. If we do not get any recent posts, just return loading, which can eventually be replaced by a loading component. And then we'll return, again, the same thing, just with a fragment, and then we'll grab the little loop that we made here. All of that. And then we can do recent posts .posts edges map. Should give us exactly the same thing. Maybe. Getting any errors? No errors. would help if I actually added the component. There we go. Clicking to it goes to, wait a minute. Why did that go to, what was I clicking on that made that go to the actual, oh, interesting. I didn't see that. There's a, the WordPress excerpt comes out with a, like a read more link on its own, which we really don't want. I didn't even see that because my styling here is non-existent, and I just clicked on some text within the excerpt that linked me to a different page. That's something that we can fix. Let's do that real quick. WP recent, excerpt, remove, read more. I think we just have to hook in to that function. We go back over to our theme, go back into functions. And we can essentially just certainly there's no way that that is all that needs to happen, right? Yeah, that removes the entire excerpt. What are you talking about? God, you gotta love Stack Exchange. Let's use this function and just actually alter the output of that of that read more, or of that excerpt function. We've got the global post. We don't need to conditionally do anything. We just need to change the output. Excerpt read more link. I mean, we can just have the output be nothing. Which isn't going to work. Hello? Okay. Neither of those things are helpful. Yep, just display none it. Got it. Nope. Filter excerpt more. Just have it return nothing. There we go. Just needed to hit the, so we just needed to hook into the excerpt more function, replace it with our own. We just return an empty string. We no longer get that bad URL. Sweet. Okay, cool. That makes sense. One of the other ways too that we could change that, there are some settings in the WordPress admin that when you actually go to launch a like headless WordPress and NextJS application, in your general settings, you can change the WordPress address and the site address. So if we wanted to change the way those types of things are output from WordPress, we could change the site URL to http://localhost 3000. When you save that, if we remove this filter that we just did, you'll see that the URL at the bottom, you can't really actually see that. I clicked on it, it goes to Hello Universe on localhost. Which, because the routing is different on here for these posts, yeah, we would have to change the way that the post, we'd have to change that the post type actually writes that slug, because we would want it to be /post/ hello universe instead of just /hello universe. But the base part of the URL is now localhost, and that's how you change that through your general settings. I am going to just straight up remove the excerpt for right now, so that we don't have to deal with that. Okay, cool. So we've got all of that handled. Let's get back on track with what we were actually trying to do, which was something. What were we trying to do before we got off on this tangent? Just keep that consistent. Change that to a named const there. Yeah, cool. What were we doing? Oh yes, okay. That leads us our segue into custom meta. So let's say that we wanted to, instead of using just like the default poster image or the featured image output here, what if we wanted to actually throw up the YouTube like URL and actually embed like an iframe or something like that into our like recent videos component here? We can certainly do that. So the first step for us would be on the WordPress side of things. If we go to our videos, custom post type, click into one of these videos, we would want to add some custom meta to the right-hand side here. That is similar to like poster image, but ours would be, you know, like YouTube URL or something like that. So let's go ahead and do that. If we go back into our functions.php file within the WordPress theme, we're going to need to add another function here to actually add custom meta to the custom post type. Now, give me a moment because I'm going to reference some code that I wrote in the past to do this. Because I will be honest with you, every single time I need to add custom meta to a custom post type, I have to look it up. I do not remember any of this stuff. So let me look over here real quick. Give me just a moment. If we go into there, and go into here, here. Actually, yeah, that's not going to be helpful for us, is it? Let's just do it the old-fashioned way. WP add custom meta to custom post type. How to add custom fields to a custom post type. This is 90% of our jobs as developers is just Googling things. Custom fields for blah, blah, blah. No, we're not going to go there. We're not looking for custom fields. We're looking for actually adding a meta box. Let's look at this WordPress support thread. This is more along the lines of what we'll need. Let me just see how that tracks with the way that we generally do things in our starter WordPress theme. So we have a there's a methodology when writing PHP and like object-oriented programming in general. It's like called the factory methodology. It's the factory method pattern. This website is the oldest website I think I've ever seen in my life. It's copyright. No, there's no copyright on it. I was going to say, is this from, 1984? It's an old website, man. So you can tell how fucking old this methodology is too. Factory design pattern. Essentially, what the factory pattern is you have a file that acts as a factory to churn out things, right? To churn out functions or whatever. In our case, it churns out custom post types. Because we write so many custom post types, we wrote a file that takes in some arguments. It's essentially a PHP class that takes in some arguments and then uses those arguments to build out a custom post type. So it handles all the labels based on the arguments and stuff that you pass it. It handles any of the custom meta that you need based on some of the arguments or some of the functions that exist within your controller that kind of calls that factory file. So yeah, in any case, we need to add some meta boxes and save the post based on what we're talking about here. So let's structure this out a little bit. So the first thing that we need to do is write the meta field into the custom post type, save that meta in the database. So our first piece of the puzzle here, we will add the actual meta boxes. So we'll call this function add meta. We'll call it add video meta so that we can be specific. Add video meta. Oh, that's funny. They are doing almost exactly the same thing that we're doing with the YouTube ID. That's funny. The way that this is organized, though, they have this admin init, add meta box. Not sure that that's super helpful, really. Add action, add meta box. and meta save. Yeah. Okay. So add video meta box. We will call this. There is a WordPress function called add meta box that we can leverage here. If we scroll down and look at some of the examples here, we can essentially just snag one of these and then run through it a little bit. Let me make this look a little bit nicer so that we can actually read it. Okay, so this add meta box function takes in an ID that we can define ourselves. So this ID is going to be YouTube URL. It then takes in a title string that is escaped here. So that's the text domain, which we don't have, but we can just call it just to prepare. I think the 2021 is the default. I think that's the default text domain for the 2021 theme. Instead of calling this my meta box, we're going to call this YouTube URL. And then our callback is what actually writes out the markup for that meta. So if we scroll back down to the, wow, there's a lot of examples here. If we scroll back down to wherever we grabbed, this from, this one's a little bit more of a robust example. So same thing essentially. This callback is where we actually write the function that outputs the HTML for the meta box. So we will call this one video meta box markup. And then the fourth argument here, context priority. Which one? Screen, the screen or screens on which to show the box, such as post type, link, or comment. WP screen. I have never seen that wording when referencing like the name of a custom post type. Because I think it's just going to be video that we want to add that to. And then we can change the positioning of it too. So we want this to go the priority, high, lower, default. We can also give it a context. So the context is the actual position in the admin that we want this meta box to show up on. So we want this in the sidebar on the right-hand side there. So you've got video side, and then the priority of it, we'll just say is high, which should put it above the poster image in the sidebar there. Okay, so we've got that. Now we need to actually write out the markup for the callback function, which will be function video meta box markup. And then it looks like we need to pass it post and meta box as arguments. Output the last time the post was modified. Let's see what they're doing here. Output this, output that. Output value of the custom post field. I think what they're doing there is a little bit different than what we need. Yeah. So the way that we're going to handle this is we are going to use we're just going to output some we're going to escape there, so that we can get into HTML and actually write out some HTML for this video meta box markup. So I'm going to output a div. WordPress has very specific class names for the markup. And I'm just grabbing these from a reference file that I have. So we first start with a base control component. That's just the class name that WordPress uses for, we go into here, inspect that. Let's drop that down so we can still see the sidebar. Components. There should be a components base control. So this is the top level of the control that we're using. In fact, we probably want to leverage a panel. So let's mimic this markup a little bit here. Yeah, that's what we're gonna do. Components, panel body. We don't need the is opened. I believe that's handled by JavaScript. So we have the components panel body. Let's grab the body title. If I can right click. Just want to grab this entire element here. With all of the markup. Already expanded by default is false. Class components button. It's a toggle. There's a span. Then there's an SVG. Within that span. Already hidden role image. That's all good. Nice and accessible. We'll keep that all on one line. And then we can drop the span down to the next one. Close that out. Got the actual text for that panel. Close the button. Close the H2. All right, that was nested. Editor post link. I don't think that's all. I don't think we need anything there. Let's look at the poster image markup real quick. And just make sure that there's nothing. Editor post. Featured image. So I think they just wrap this next section in a div that's uniquely identifiable. So div class, call this editor post YouTube URL. Close that out. Keep digging down. Then it's got a container. And then in that container is the actual thing. Help folder. Base control label input. Base control. Yeah, okay. So this is essentially where we were starting before. So now we have the div class components base control. And then in here we can throw our label. We can throw our input. We'll do a for. An ID to that label. Type equals URL. ID is going to be YouTube URL. Use that as the for attribute for our label. Close out the label. Do we need anything else on our input? Oh, yes. Let's escape HTML here. PHP echo escape HTML. Just do a little bit of escaping on our label. Make sure it's nice and sanitized. We're just going to call this YouTube. So that's our label. Let me get rid of that. YouTube URL. That's our label. Everything's closed. We're going to need to write out the value for the input, and I believe that's it. Enter type. Okay. So this, I believe, let me just double check here. Yeah. So for the value, we're going to write in some PHP that echo escape attribute. This value is going to come from WordPress, right? So if we have something saved in our WP admin for this meta in particular, we're going to be grabbing it from the post itself. So when we passed that post argument into this markup function that we're writing, that's how we're going to get to it. So we then get that post meta. We want to essentially see if this field has any value in the database, right? So get post meta, not meet, meta. Get the post meta, and then we're going to want to, let's look at the WP get post meta. Okay, so this takes in a couple of arguments. So we want to pass it our post, which is the argument that we pass to our top level function here. Specifically, we want to give it the ID. And then the string is the meta key that we want to retrieve. So we've just been calling this YouTube URL. We're just going to stick with that. In fact, I'm going to make sure. That these things are not dashes, underscores. So the YouTube URL, and actually I'm trying to remember if PHP is cool with that, or if we should do camel case. I'm just trying to find an example in here somewhere. Array polyfills. I think we're fine with dashes. Global's content width. Section, footer, custom spacing. Just give me like something where you're using some variables here. Get theme on background underscore color. Yeah, we'll stick with underscores. We will stick with underscores. Okay, YouTube URL is what we're using. So we're going to use this get post meta function, grab the post ID, and then tell it we're looking for specifically the YouTube URL. That's all escaped within this escape attribute, since we are passing that data from the WordPress database into the value attribute of this input. Okay, so we've got the markup handled. One thing too that we will need to do, just for security's sake, is add a nonce. WP nonce. So we're essentially going to create a new WP nonce field, I think actually is what we need. Yeah. This is just this nonce is essentially just a way of validating that the value passed to this input comes from like a validated source, right? Like someone wasn't able to just somehow, without logging into the WordPress admin or something like that, figure out how to pass some data into this input field and mess things up on the website. So we're going to use the WP nonce field. Close that out. Then within here, we pass a couple more arguments. The action is optional, which we don't need. The name we can add, which is going to be YouTube URL nonce, I think is what we'll call it. Actually, so this is just a name. Sorry, yeah, we'll just call this add YouTube URL meta. YouTube URL meta. And then the refer, I think, is the other value that we want to, or sorry, the, what am I doing here? What are these two values? I'm looking at my reference here. Oh, this first argument is the action, because it can be an integer or a string. So the action, we're just naming the action, YouTube URL meta, and then the actual name of it is going to be YouTube URL meta nonce. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. So we create this nonce to essentially validate the data that we're getting into this custom input. And we will use that nonce when we actually save the meta. But that should give us something. We need to make sure that, so we have our meta markup. We need to add an action to add meta boxes. So above here, or rather below here, we will do add, is it a filter or a function? Or an action. Add action, I think it's add meta boxes. Add meta boxes, and then we pass it add video meta box. Let's save that, actually look at the back end and see if it screams at me. Link, poster image, view video, video block. Uh-oh. Add action, add meta boxes, let's add meta box, video meta box markup, post with the nonce field, everything's closed, we reopen the PHP, Why would you not like that? But you're also not like erroring anywhere, which is strange. So looking at this, they're doing this under admin init. Yeah, I suppose we could try that. So maybe we're just not hooking into the right status and visibility. Permalink poster image. Have everything closed properly, right? There's a div, label, and an input. It's a self-closing input. It's an ID. What? Our slug for our custom post type is just video. When we look up here, where is slug? Label, video, description. Should automatically default to the singular. Error of undefined. Okay, what are you yelling about here now? Cannot read property, error of undefined. Gotcha, no problem. Everything's fine. It's strange. Okay, so why isn't our meta showing up? This happens to me every single time that I try to do this. It's always a bit of a pain. Admin init, basing this off of a forum post. Admin init. It's exceptionally obnoxious that they named it the same thing. That's probably why, because I have these things backwards. Wait, no, I don't. Yeah, no, I don't. Add action, admin init, add video meta box function. That's all spelled correctly. Why aren't you giving me custom meta in here, friend? Permalink poster image, blah, blah, blah. Video meta box, okay. Let's see. Meta boxes, WP action. Add meta boxes hook. This is where we want to hook it. We don't want to hook it into the init. Add meta boxes, adding custom meta boxes, 10.2. We can change the priority of this function, I suppose. 10.2. Add meta boxes. We don't need to pass anything here. Post normal default, render my meta box. Example with a post type specific call. Oh, interesting. Both will accomplish the same thing. Best practice is to add post type to create less unnecessary hooks for posts. Interesting. Okay. I did not know that. Add meta boxes video. videos. Maybe. Hey, there it is. Sick. Oh my god, I have absolutely destroyed this. Okay, is it automatically adding that? Do I need to just calm down with my styling here a little bit? I think so. I think I may have overdone the markup just a bit. It would appear that WordPress handles a good portion of that for you. Components base control. Okay, partially, but like it's the arrows are different and like the styling of it's a little bit off. Edit post meta boxes area is side. I'm not going to worry about this right now. That's so weird though. It has the same functionality and everything. It's just bizarre. Okay. In any case, why is this returning us an array? Already, there should be nothing in here. Get post meta, post ID, YouTube URL. I mean, when we change this and update, nothing's going to happen because we don't. Response is not a valid JSON response. Okay. Well, what's your problem then? YouTube URL array. What am I missing here? I can't imagine that that last argument matters. We've got the markup, text value, blah, blah, blah. Is this all within quotes properly? Everything's closed. That's all fine. This doesn't need to be self-closing. Not that that matters. It's just an input. Okay, let's write the save function here. Function video meta box save. I think we need to pass it the post here as well. Double check. Just the ID, I guess, the post ID. So we'll pass this function the post ID. We will then check to see if a box title nonce. Meta box title nonce. Seconds. Okay, wrote out this little function. We're checking to see if the YouTube URL meta nonce is set, and we're checking to verify that nonce and make sure that it's not coming from a different source than it should be. And then we're returning the post ID. So then we're continuing down this function call. We can then check if the array key exists in the post. Do a little conditional here. If array key exists that's going to be the actual name of our input, which is YouTube URL. If array key exists in the post of that input field, then we will actually save this meta using update post meta. We will use the post ID, the name of the field, which is YouTube URL, name of the field, and then we will sanitize that text field. Before that information gets into the database, we want to make sure that it's sanitized, YouTube URL. And that's actually coming from the post, so we want to make sure that we post array YouTube URL. And then from there, we should be able to just look into our save post action. Add action, save post, not that, video, another box, save. Which needs to be in quotes. What did I miss here? Semicolon. Unforgiving PHP. Response is not valid JSON. You gotta be kidding me. You're kidding me. Go escape attribute, get post meta. Change that to text just for now, just to see if that's doing anything. We're escaping the attribute. We're getting the post meta from the post ID. Oh, we're not echoing it. This post meta, get post meta accepts a third argument is whether or not you want to just echo the the response from this function or the return. We didn't have that. So now it's not coming back with an array, which is good. If we test this, the response is not a valid JSON response. What is the response here? Okay, so when we update anything in general now, it's coming back saying the response is not a valid JSON response. Why? Invalid JSON response. Network. Let's just refresh this. So everything loads. We'll clear it out. And look at which one of you is coming back with a... That's a whole page. Failed to load response data. Okay. So what's the problem here? Add meta box and video 10.2. What are we getting here? Updating failed. The response is not valid JSON. And I mean, this must have something to do with the meta that we just added, right? Let's remove our actions. Get rid of that. And then change something in there. Oh no, you're just having problems in general? What? Okay, so nothing's working now. Got it. What? What is going on here? Let's go ahead and stop the site and restart it on local. Refresh that sucker. The response is not valid JSON. Okay. I mean, do we need to? Let's remove everything we've done so far today. Still not a valid JSON response. Like, what is happening? Like, the WordPress logo is gone. Getting like a whole bunch of errors from the API fetch. Okay, well, I removed our custom post type. So if we go back here, we shouldn't see videos anymore. I removed everything that we did. Do I need to like flush the permalinks or something? Sample page. The response is not a valid JSON response. Oh my God. It's because when we go to our settings and when we change this site address, messes things up locally, and I never changed it back. Oh boy. Let's put everything back, refresh, go back to videos. Please. Coding gods above. Let's go back here, YouTube URL. Save that and update. It says it's updated. Let's make sure it actually saves if we refresh the page. It does not. Sick. Okay. At least we're able to update the post now. Add action. Save post. If is set post YouTube URL meta nonce. That is the name of our nonce. And you cannot verify that nonce. YouTube URL meta. Let's. If that's set and you can't verify it, then just return the post ID. Don't need to do anything else. Otherwise, if the array key exists, do we have a name on this? I don't think that we do. Let's try that and see if it helps. Actually, like, I believe that when WordPress posts this data, it uses the input name. Let's find out if that's accurate. negative. Okay. We still need that name there. We have type text. We have the ID. Which maybe we don't need. Let's try this. Let's remove the ID. Update, please. Refresh. There we go. Had to do with the way that we were naming the name of the input field with dashes instead of underscores. So there we go. Okay. Taking a while to get to this point, but we're in the home stretch. So I think the last thing that we're going to do is actually just make this meta available to us through the GraphQL, through our GraphQL endpoint. So we've created custom meta. You can duplicate this as many times as you want. If we wanted to add another field, we would essentially just copy and paste this base control, add another one, and then copy and paste the check in here to actually grab that data from the WordPress post, and then update the actual post meta based on those values. So it's just a matter of copying and pasting a couple of times, adding another meta box up here, naming it, all of that type of stuff. So that's more or less how that's done in a very roundabout and long, annoying way. We did it though. We've got the YouTube URL. Let's look at WPGraphQL and figure out creating custom post types. Let's look for WPGraphQL, GraphQL custom meta. How to add metadata the right way. There is a function that we can use from WPGraphQL that allows us to add a new GraphQL field to a specific endpoint within GraphQL itself, within WPGraphQL itself. So let's do that. GraphQL register types is the action that we need to hook into. So within WordPress, we need to make the GraphQL endpoint aware of our custom meta. So if we did something like function video, let's do GraphQL video meta. Don't think we need to pass anything to it. Let's do actually, let's just look at that. Here is there. Meta keys, loop through all of it. That's a little bit more convoluted than we're looking for. Let's look. Advanced custom fields, query post based on. Let's just look in the documentation for WPGraphQL. At the register GraphQL field, hook. Add a field to a type in the GraphQL schema. Schema is the word I've been missing this entire time, schema. Essentially what we do is we use this register GraphQL function to say, hey, go to this specific part of the GraphQL schema and add a new field to it. And that field will correspond to the custom meta that we just built out. So what we can do is exactly that. Register GraphQL field, and then hit a return. This field we are going to call YouTube URL. This is the type name that we're passing it right here. Name of the GraphQL type in the schema to register the field to. That's incorrect, not YouTube URL. Video is the type in the schema that we are registering this to. If we go into here, go back to the GraphQL IDE, we can actually output that by doing query, I think it's just I think we can output the types, type name. What is the query that we can run to get all of these things? Is it schema? Let's have a selection of subfields, yeah. Schema types. Schema types name. Here we go. Okay. So now we should be able to look for video as our type name. Okay, good. So that is correct. That's our type name. The name of the field should be unique to the type the field is being registered to. So this is the actual YouTube. Do we want to lowercase that? Yeah. YouTube. Oh my gosh. YouTube URL is what we're going to call it. Configuration for the field. This is where we kind of specify like what GraphQL should be looking for from this data. So the type, we're going to do string, I think. Can we do URL? Doesn't matter for right now, we're just going to do string. We can add a description to this just so that it's helpful in the GraphQL schema itself. So description, let's line all of this up. And we can escape this through WordPress escaping functions, which I think needs to be 2 underscores. The URL of the YouTube video. That's the description. And then we tell it how we want it to resolve. So by telling it how we want it to resolve, this is the function that will be executed when the field is asked for in a query. So we essentially want to get the meta from the custom post type the normal way you would in WordPress, right? So we'll write a function where we're passing in the post data. And then within that function, we essentially can set to a variable the YouTube URL, which is going to be equal to, and it's PHP, so let's just do YouTube URL. This is going to be get post meta, I believe. Similar to how we did it in the function, actually. Get post meta, post ID, YouTube URL true. Should be exactly that same call. We tell it, hey, go to this post ID, grab the YouTube URL, and echo it out. And then from there, we should be able to return the YouTube URL. We can check if it's not empty. The YouTube URL. If not empty YouTube URL, then give us YouTube URL. Otherwise, output nothing. Yeah. And that registers the field in GraphQL for us. We then, however, do need to make sure that we register GraphQL field. Make sure we got a semicolon there. We then have to actually hook into the GraphQL register types function to get that to actually run. So add action, GraphQL register types, GraphQL video meta. We save that, refresh graphical. And now we should, on each of the videos, be able to ask for the YouTube URL. YouTube URL. Let's run that recent videos query. One of them doesn't have one, the other one does. So we now have the YouTube URL being passed to GraphQL from custom meta in WordPress. We can go to our recent videos function here and actually adjust the API call to give us the YouTube URL from recent videos. We can do the same thing in our single query for the API. But then what we could do if we wanted to is essentially just grab the YouTube embed. Let's just go over here, grab the YouTube embed code. Oops, grab that, paste that in here. And then instead of having a fixed source, we can change this to a template literal, where we tell it get the node, interrupt that in brackets, get the node.youtube URL, output it there. We would probably want to do some kind of check to see if node.youtube URL exists, then render out the iframe, otherwise don't do anything because we don't want a weird empty iframe. Should be able to save that and see some results. Although I think it's because the URL that I have in here is not the proper yeah, because it's got to be the embed URL. That's okay. Let's just change it to the proper embed URL. Share. Embed. We will just grab the embed URL. And I will go back to my video, change that to the proper embed URL, update you, refresh you, give me an embedded YouTube video. Boom. We've got it. So you can see the intro video doesn't have one. We can change that. I have these two things backwards anyways, so let's fix it. So if we go back, go to part 1, pause, share, grab the actual embed URL. Come on now, let me select it, please. Copy. Nope. Copy. Go back into the admin. Let's give this one the right video. This is actually part 1. If we go back to the videos, go to the intro, paste the intro embed URL, update that, refresh this. We've got 2 embeds coming from WordPress, output on the page only when they're available and there. We did it. I think that is probably where I'm going to end it for today. We, just to recap, kind of went through and set up a custom post type, kind of talked through how to do that in WordPress effectively. Talked about an ancient factory pattern for object-oriented programming. Made those post types available to the GraphQL schema, added some custom meta to our custom post types, and then added and made sure that that meta was accessible in the GraphQL schema as well. So there were quite a few steps that we went through to get our custom meta and custom post types exposed in the GraphQL schema so that we could start querying it on the Next.js side. But with that, we are now in a pretty good spot to start working potentially on some user-specific stuff. So in the coming streams of videos and stuff, we'll be talking about how to make authenticated requests to GraphQL. We'll figure out how to actually get the user data, let them log in, all of that type of stuff. That's going to be heavy. Figuring out how to pass those authenticated requests back and forth between our Next.js application and the WordPress GraphQL schema. It took a lot of trial and error for me to figure it out on the client project I was working on with this tech stack, but we will go through it together and we will figure it out. I really appreciate you hanging out, sticking around. Thank you all very much, and I hope that you have a good day.